Today we are going to talk about the attention economy and the disgruntled. And I think I should probably cover things that fall into possibly three buckets. Either they are things that you know all too well, or possibly things that you've heard somewhere else and it got you to think. Then the third category, or maybe some ideas that you haven't thought of. So let's start with the first bucket. And of course, coming here today to the station was another example where I take public transportation and I seem to be the only one who is not looking at a smartphone. That means we are traveling through the city in our own private capsule, or a virtual capsule, we might call it, because of course we are chatting with people that are not even close to us. We might be watching a video of something that was produced far, far away. And so we travel together, but we remain separate the entire time. So we're in the middle of the masses, but actually we have no idea of what's going on around us. That means we have no connection to those people that are physically in our proximity. And in essence, we don't seem to care. And then we raise the question why it is so difficult to have a community spirit. And of course, the subject that we talk about daily comes into play. So today I'd like to talk about this concept called the attention economy. First of all, to explain what it's all about, where this leads us, what's the flip side, and then, of course, the results. The attention economy basically means that our attention is our new currency. And we pay with our data, but I don't need to talk to you about that one, and that would be a whole new show. So we denote who or what gets our attention, and we seem to be bombarded either from a commercial perspective or friends, acquaintances who are trying to get our attention. Now, it's one of those things when you're a little bit older, you know a time before we were in this condition, apart from the fact that we've completely lost the concept of being bored. And then actually boredom could be a source of inspiration. I grew up in Los Angeles. And if you've ever heard anything about Los Angeles, it has to be what at the time I was growing up had one of the worst, the absolute worst public transportation systems. It seemed like in the entire world. And so I didn't have a car. I was too young. And so I would take the bus. And the bus might run once an hour. And you know that feeling when you see the public transportation going right by you? Well, I know that feeling quite well from back then. But of course, the big difference was that I would have to wait an hour. And I did not have anything with me to keep me occupied or amused or busy. That meant I was left to my own devices. And our concept of time, of course, was much different. So let's relate that condition, the one I just described to you, to where we find ourselves today. If we don't have a schedule, and I'm as guilty as anybody, believe you me, I'm not making any claims that I'm immune to any of this. Out of necessity, I need to go ahead and keep a schedule. And I have to fit people in. And part of my attention economy is, of course, whether I can fit somebody into my schedule. Which, of course, means the whole concept of spontaneity becomes more and more difficult. That we forget how to be spontaneous. And I think that is a serious problem. But it's always a question of time, or lack thereof. So we can go ahead and say that attention equates time. Because that's really what we're paying with our time. Now, I'm not going to talk about how we might squander that resource that we have. But that's really the condition. People are fighting for our attention all the time. A number of us feel that we need to apologize if we cannot respond immediately. And very often at the end of the day, we ask the question, so what did we actually do? So I just described the situation from the receiver side, i.e., what it's like for us being bombarded with those people that are trying to get our attention. What about the other way? So we feel that we need to strive for others' attention. And of course, as I mentioned in the beginning of this program, that we are running around in these virtual capsules, and truly running around. So there's no acknowledgement of anyone who's physically in our area. That means our sole source of humanity is that striving for attention. That means we think that everything has to go quickly. We do not have time to dwell. It creates a situation where our attention span becomes shorter and shorter. And again, I make no claims that I am immune to any of this. I realize that it's more and more difficult for me to actually sit and read a book for hours because I feel that I'm missing something. And I need to take a break and go ahead and check my mail or do whatever. So what does this word attention actually mean? Can we equate a certain sense of meaning to the word attention here? Well, I think all of you who have spent any time on social media know that attention has a completely different dimension. And we strive for likes. So that means we can measure the attention in the number of likes that we get for some posting that we might have made. And I have to admit, it's a little bit difficult here on the radio to measure how many likes I'm getting. But I strive, and I continue. So what's the feeling if you make a posting and nobody likes it? Well, of course, the feeling is that you did not get anybody's attention. They were not willing to pay by giving you a like. And really, that is where we have taken that of what's going on around us, and we've brought it to the level of somebody giving us a like. So what's the feeling if we don't get a like? We feel that we're not getting anybody's attention. So perhaps the next time we might even be more extravagant. We might make more of an effort to be rather ostentatious, flashy. So somebody will think it's funny, or at least we get somebody's attention. They acknowledge our presence, and they give us a like. And our show today is about the attention economy and the disgruntled. So I was talking about the struggle that we have to get others' attention because we walk through the day with activities taking place that we're pretty much oblivious to. And then after a while, you start thinking, it doesn't even matter. It makes no difference because I'm not getting anybody's attention. So what kind of condition is this, and what kind of price do we pay as an individual or as a collective within our society? If we have great sways within our populace who feel that they're not worthy of getting any attention. So I think we've seen this film a number of times in different genres. So where do these people go? The attention deficient. I think we know where they go. And here I'd like to go ahead and highlight what I think the price is. The price that we pay within our society for those individuals who feel that they do not get attention. Again, the name of the show is Attention Economy and the Disgruntled. That means when we're talking about economy, there is some sort of exchange taking place. So we give somebody our attention, and in fact, we feel that our importance has grown in stature. But of course, we know that this attention is a drug. It's a drug that we can never have enough of. If we ride the attention train, we don't want to get off. So imagine a situation where all of a sudden your attention train stops. You have people that are moving next to you, but you have no contact to them whatsoever. There was no acknowledgement of each other's presence. And that leaves the individual very possibly in a very desperate situation. Radio Tipping Point, my name is Mike Boyle, and we are talking about the attention economy and the disgruntled. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I thought I'd be covering 3 areas. One of them, I suspect all of you know. Be another area where I think perhaps you might not have looked at it that way. Or maybe it just attenuated those things that you were thinking of anyhow. And then there's the area where I'd like to surprise you. And so here we go. I was talking about the friend of the friendless. So we have this group in our society that are attention deprived. So clearly they feel like outsiders. And perhaps they were already feeling like outsiders before the attention economy hit them like a sledgehammer. So greetings to the friend of the friendless. Who do you think that might be, the friend of the friendless? We know this person very well. This person looks for the attention deprived. And says to the group, Yeah, I'll give you some of my attention. And I feel your pain. And that's right. That's not fair. And that's right. We should do something about it. But of course, we all know that this friend of the friendless, this person, or it could be a group, they have ulterior motives. So now we're a group. We have our own tribe. We're the tribe of the attention deprived. And we're proud of our group. So now this person, the friend of the friendless, goes ahead, goes straight to the tribe, and says, yeah, that's right. This is a bad situation, and it's not fair, and we should do something about it. And we've seen this movie over and over again. But we don't seem to have a way of changing the plot in the middle. And we definitely know how this one's going to end. Just to prove that we are live, you are listening to Radio Tipping Point. And our program today is titled The Attention Economy and the Disgruntled. So up till now, I've been talking about social media. I'd like to go ahead and change the tempo a little bit and talk about something that perhaps might be a little bit more tangible for all of us. So does attention only take place in social media? No. Do we strive for attention at the workplace? I worked for a number of years within the corporate area, and if there was one activity that we all had that had nothing to do with value, it was all about getting attention. And sometimes we would perform certain actions that when I think about today is actually quite embarrassing. That I would allow myself to be manipulated by those activities that were going on around me, and felt that I had to be even more obnoxious just to get people's attention. But just like that tribe I talked about earlier, the workplace is our tribe. So what happens? Due to no fault of our own, that we are told in no uncertain terms that we do not belong to the tribe anymore. I was fortunate. I decided I didn't want to be part of the tribe. But I know enough people, through no fault of their own, were told, you don't fit into our tribe anymore. and those individuals feel that they don't fit into any tribe. Or perhaps in the beginning, they might feel, here's my chance to go ahead and make something else out of my life. But they weren't able to get anybody's attention. And then they started feeling they weren't qualified for anything else. Then to alleviate the pain, you start with some habits that perhaps are not very healthy. And it requires a certain amount of strength to be able to say, no, I don't want that to be part of my life. And because we're running around with no acknowledgement to those individuals we are finding to the right and left of us, we run across more and more people who do not have a network of real people who are willing to invest in that individual. And then all kinds of ghosts start appearing, things from the past, where you feel that you get that reminder, yes, I don't deserve anything better. So I follow a script that always brings me to that conclusion that I know is going to happen. But the good part about it is that I know how it's going to end. And at least I have control of that. So let's call these people attention deficient. So I'd like to pose a question to you. And it's something that you might see it different, but I feel that it doesn't really require too much energy from our side. Do you think if we were to show these individuals some real attention, do you think it might help the situation? And of course, the problem that we have is finding the time to actually go ahead and show anybody any real attention. And if the only community they have is social media, are they going to be able to tell somebody who's in there, one of their friends, about this malaise? Nobody wants to hear negative stories on Facebook. So this is like a condition that keeps getting, it's kind of like a blister, I'd call it. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And you know what happens to a blister when it keeps going bigger and bigger? Does it continue forever of just getting bigger? One day it's going to pop. So we have events that are taking place after a year of this wonderful pandemic where people are starting to lose their patience, and I admit I am no different. Where the sense of isolation was bad enough to begin with, but now we're going stir crazy. And we keep getting the message from our dear government. You need to have resolve. You need to get your act together. You are responsible that this situation is not getting any better. So what does this situation really look like? On the one side, you have no attention. You feel that your world's falling apart. And you keep getting this message, more resolve, we can do it. And after a while, you don't believe it anymore. And that's really where we found ourselves right now. On Radio Tipping Point, where the hits keep on coming. So where did we leave off? We were talking about the attention deprived. And we talked about the friend of the friendless. And we talked about the lack of attention, not just in social media, but in real life. And we also talked about something we can all do when we run across an individual or a group of individuals who feel that they're attention deprived. And I would argue that it's enough for us to acknowledge their presence. And very often, that's all they're looking for. But we have no time, and we close our eyes and we move our head to the side because we do not want to acknowledge it, because it could be something that would be so disturbing that we'd prefer to stay away from it. And no, this is not new. We are not talking about anything new here. The situation has changed a bit. That means we have a different stage, but the affliction remains the same. We know this from the beer tents in Munich about 100 years ago. And what about what happened in the streets here about 83 years ago? We found it at Sandy Hook, Columbine, Christchurch, and Bataclan. And you knew this was coming, didn't you? We saw it at the Capitol building on the 6th of January. And for some reason you might think that I am trying to justify something. No. There is no justification. But one thing's for sure, folks. If we are not capable of trying to understand and answer the question, why, we should not be surprised that the situation never improves. And for those of you who think we do not have the power to make a difference, I'd like to correct you now. Because we do. We have the power. In closing, what we try to focus in this program is on 3 components. Empowerment, that we feel that we can actually make a difference in a small way, and that's a prerequisite for accepting others and achieving inclusiveness. And then lastly, performing the social transformation that we all know which is necessary, because heaven knows this is not a condition that we want to remain in. And I'd like to leave you with this positive note that we can make a difference. We can go ahead and address these points.